Welcome back to the Musselman Math 9 videos, and today we're going to be talking about the distance formula. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the distance formula. It says given 2 points on a coordinate plane, and our 2 points would be x sub 1, comma, y sub 1, and x sub 2, comma, y sub 2. These are our 2 points that they're talking about. It says given 2 points on a coordinate plane, the distance between the 2 points can be determined by the formula. And this is the formula that we're going to use. This is derived from the Pythagorean theorem, which is what we discussed last week. And you read this, d equals, which stands for distance, d equals the square root of the quantity of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared, plus the quantity of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. And this x sub 2 and y sub 2 are this point right here. And this x sub 1 and y sub 1 is this point right here. Remember, that's just representing a point on a coordinate plane. So this first example is going to be really easy. It says find the distance between 2 points. And notice it gives us this vertical line on the coordinate plane. Well, if it's a vertical line or a horizontal line, it's really easy to find the distance because all you're going to have to do is count your units. So I'm going to start with this top point up here, and we're just going to count the units down to the bottom point that's marked. So we're going to count spaces here. So we're going 1 space, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the distance between the 2 points is 6 units. So another easy example here, this time we have a horizontal line. So this is just as easy as the first one. We're just going to have to count the number of spaces we have between the 2 points. So I'm going to start with this leftmost point over here, and we're going to count to the other point that's marked on the horizontal line. So we're just counting spaces here. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the distance here is 7 units. So this is when it gets a little bit more complicated. This is when we're going to have to actually use the distance formula, because notice we have a slanted line this time. We don't have a horizontal or a vertical line, so we can't just count spaces. So we're going to have to use that distance formula. I'm just going to rewrite our formula. So our formula is the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus the quantity of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Now the first thing we need to figure out are what are our 2 points here. And notice they have it marked on this line. So we have a black point right here. So we need to name the ordered pair for that. And remember, when you name an ordered pair, you start with your x, which is left or right. And notice we're not moving left or right. So our x would be 0, comma, and then you count your y, which is your up or down spaces, and we're going up 2. So this top point here is 0, 2. Then we're going to count our bottom point here. Same thing, our ordered pair. So we're going to have an xy. So you count x first, which is left or right. Notice we're going right 1 space. And then our y, which is up or down, and we're going down 2 spaces, so negative 2. So those are our 2 points that we're going to use. And I'm just going to label these just to remind us. This first point is our x, the second one's the y. First point is our x, the second one is our y. And we're just going to plug this into our formula. So I'm just going to rewrite. So we're going to say the square root. I'm going to have a parenthesis. I'm just going to carry it down. And notice this says x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So that just means subtract your x's. So I'm going to start with my first x, which was 0, minus, and our second x, which is 1. Put it in parenthesis and bring down that squared. I'm going to carry down the plus, and then I'm going to put another parenthesis. And then we're going to subtract our y's, and we're going to go in the same order. So I started with the 0 for the x, so I'm going to start with the 2 for the y, minus our other y, which is negative 2, in parentheses squared. Now I just have an arithmetic problem. So you're going to follow your order operations. So I'm going to carry down this square root sign. And our order operations say to do the parentheses first. So I'm going to start in this set of parentheses. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1. So parenthesis negative 1 squared. Bring down that plus. I'm going to do my other set of parentheses. 2 minus negative 2. So that will give us 4. So bring down my parenthesis, and that's 4 in parentheses squared. Use the calculator if you need to. If you don't remember your rules, use the calculator. Okay, keep following the order operations. So next thing is our exponent. So I'm going to carry down the square root sign and say negative 1 squared. So negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Plus, I'm going to go to this exponent, 4 squared, which means 4 times 4, which is 16. Keep following your order operations, bring down this square root, and then 1 plus 16, that will give us 17. Now, this looks like what we've been doing the past couple of weeks with our square roots. So we're going to type that into the calculator. When we type that in, that's going to give us an approximation of 4.123 and so forth. So we're going to see if we can do a factor tree here. And we can't. 17 is a prime number. So that means that this is our final answer. So the distance between these 2 points is square root 17. So this example is just like the last one. It just didn't show us the points on our coordinate plane and went ahead and gave them to us. So it gives us 1, 5. Remember, this is an x and this is a y. And 10, 2. This is your x and this is your y again. So I'm just going to rewrite our formula over here on the side just to remind us. So remember, your formula is the square root of the quantity of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus the quantity of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Remember, this x sub 2 and x sub 1 just means subtract your x's. This y sub 2 minus y sub 1 just means subtract your y's. So let's plug it into the formula. So the square root, remember this means subtract your x's first. So the quantity, parenthesis, of your x's. So the first x is 1. Formula says subtract. Your second x is 10. Parenthesis squared. Plus, that's from the formula. Then we're going to subtract our y's. So parenthesis, first y is 5 minus our second y is 2 in parentheses squared. So now you're doing your order operations. So bring down your square root. You're going to start with the parentheses. 1 minus 10, which will give us negative 9. So parentheses negative 9 squared plus another parenthesis. 5 minus 2 will give us 3 parentheses squared. Keep following your order operations. So bring down the square root. You're going to do your squared next. Negative 9 squared, negative 9 times negative 9 is positive 81 plus 3 squared. 3 times 3 will give us 9. Bring down your square root. 81 plus 9 is 90. Now this looks like what we've been doing the past few weeks. So type into your calculator square root of 90, which will give us approximately 9.426. So now we're going to see if we can factor tree this. I'm just going to come over here and rewrite square root 90 on the side so I have a little extra room. And we can do a factor tree here. So I'm going to say 2 times 45 will give us 90. We can't break down 2. Now I'm going to say 5 times 9 will give me 45. Can't break down 2, can't break down 5. Can break down 9 into 3 times 3. So remember, you're circling your buddies, your pairs, and underlining your leftovers. So I'm going to draw my house, which is my square root sign. A pair of 3s, buddies of 3s, so they can go outside the house. 2 and 5 are left over, so we multiply those together, which will give us 3 square root 10. And here's our final answer. So last example, so pause this one, see if you can try it on your own, then come back and play the video and see if you have it correct. So we have the points 3, -3, 4, and 8, -2. So I'm going to label, just to remind us, that's your x, that's your y, that's an x, and that's a y. I'm going to rewrite my distance formula just to remind us. So we have the square root of the quantity of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus the quantity of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. So let's just fill in. So the square root, remember this means subtract your x's. So my first x is -3, so parenthesis -3. Formula says subtract. Our second x, which is 8, parenthesis squared. Formula says to add, so plus, and then subtract your y's. So parenthesis, first y is 4, minus, second y is -2. Notice how that's minus a -2, and then squared. Square root sign over all that. So order operations, so parenthesis, -3 minus 8. That will give us -11. Bring down the squared, plus 4 minus -2. That will give us +6. Keep it in the parenthesis. Bring down the squared. Square root. Do your exponents next. -11 squared. -11 times -11 is +121. Bring down the plus. 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. Bring down the square root sign. 121 plus 36 is 157. So type that into the calculator, and that gives us approximately 12.529. So you're going to see if you can factor tree that. And 157 is actually a prime number, so you are finished. Square root 157 is your final answer.